Okay, next 4 question, 9, 10, 11, 12. You can see that all the questions, one of the side is a 0 already. So what we need to do is just to factorize the other side. Okay, look at the questions. They are not really arranged in descending order of the variable. So we'll prefer to rearrange it. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to multiply negative value to this side, or I can change it to p squared minus 8p plus 16 equals to 0. This one, I'll change it to b squared plus 3b minus 4 equals to 0. This is already in descending order, no need to change. This one, I'll change it to descending order. Okay, so can you see descending order means the power of x from bigger to smaller, b bigger to smaller, p bigger to smaller, and so on. Okay, among all these 4, the only one that is a perfect square is question 9. Okay, how do you tell that it's a perfect square? You see this constant here, 16 is actually 4 square, and then this middle term is actually twice the product of 4 and 2 and the p. So this is a perfect square. Whereas this is not. This is although a perfect, this is not a perfect square because of a negative. This is also not a perfect square because of negative and negative here. So the only one that is perfect square is this. Okay, so the perfect square will be p minus 4 square is equals to 0. Okay, and so p minus 4 is 0, so p is equals to 4. So there's only one answer for this question. Okay, as for this question, b squared, okay, so this is not a perfect square, so we try to factorize it by the cross method. bb, 4 and 1, we put a plus here, we put a minus here, so that we can get 4b minus b, which is 3b. Okay, so this can be factorized to be 4 plus b plus 4, b minus 1 equals to 0. So now factor law, this is the product is equals to 0. That means either one of them must be 0. So b is actually negative 4 or b equals to 1. Okay. Next one, 2x plus 5x minus 3. Again, this is not perfect square, so I'm going to use the cross method to factorize. I'm going to get 2x and x, and then maybe 3 and negative 1. Why 3 and negative 1? Because 3 times 2x is 6x minus 1 times x, which is x. So 6x minus x, that will be 5x. Okay, so this can be factorized to be 2x minus 1 and then x plus 3 equals to 0. So 2x minus 1 is equals to 0, or x plus 3 equals to 0. Now factor law, 2 factors multiply together to get 0, so one of them must be 0. So x is a half, or x is a negative 3. Okay, this one, again, we factorize by using the cross method. 3x and x, okay, decomposes 3x squared to be 3x and x, and then the 5, I will get 5 here and negative 1 here. Is plus, so 5 times 3, 15, minus x, so that's a 14x. So 3x minus 1 times x plus 5 equals to 0. So again, use now factor law. 2 of them multiply together to get 0. That means either the first factor is a 0 or the second factor is a 0. So x is equals to 1/3 or x is equals to negative 5. Okay, so these are the answers for the next 4 questions. Okay, next 4 questions to solve quadratic equation. We compare all the questions and see that actually only 2 of them has one side equals to 0. The other 2 not yet. So we need to minus 7 for this case, and then minus 15 for this case. so that now is equals to 0. Okay, so next is we are going to use now factor law, so which means we're going to factorize. This is a quadratic expression, so we'll factorize it to be, okay, 4x x multiplied together is x squared. So 6 here, maybe I put a 3 and 2. So when 3 and 2, this will be minus, this is plus. So this 2 times 4x is 8x minus 3 times x is 3x. So negative 8x plus 3x, so that will be negative 5x. So I can factorize this to be 4x plus 3 times x minus 2 equals to 0. So these two factors multiply equals to 0. So 4x plus 3 is 0, or x minus 2 is a 0. So now factor law. Okay, so x is equals to negative 3/4, or x equals to 2. Okay, for this second one, for this question is, okay, we are going to factorize it, right? So let's try, maybe we have 2x with 3x, that will make the 6x. Okay, maybe we put a negative 1 here and a positive 7 here. Why so? Because 7 times 2x is 14x, minus away 3x, so you get 11x. So now we factorize it to be 2x minus 1 multiplied with 3x plus 7 equals to 0. Okay, so now factor law, the first factor is a 0, or the second factor is a 0. So if the first factor is a 0, x will be half. And then if the second factor is a 0, x will be equals to 2 and 1/3. So these two are the answers. Okay. Next, okay, already 0, so we're going to use now factor law again. 8x, maybe we put it into 4x times 2x, so that will be 8x squared. And then maybe we try a 5 and a 3, maybe a minus here and a plus here. Okay, why? Because this one will get you 12. 3 times 4x is 12x. Then 5 times 2 is 10, so it's a negative. So 12x minus 10x is 2x, which is plus 2x here. Okay, so we're going to factorize it to be 4x minus 5, and then 2x plus 3 equals to 0. So using now factor law, either the first factor is a 0 or the second factor is a 0. So if the first factor is a 0, then x is equals to 4 and 1/4. If the second factor is a 0, then x is equals to negative 1.5. So 1 and 1/4 or negative 1.5 are the answers. Okay, next one. This is easier. X, so we just try x and x. 26, we try 2 and 13. So 2 times 13 is 26. So I need a negative, so I put a negative and a positive here. So this will be factorized to be x plus 2 times x minus 13 equals to 0. So x plus 2 is a 0, or x minus 13 is a 0. So the first factor, now factor law, either the first factor 0 or second factor is a 0. So x equals to negative 2 or x equals to 13. So these are our answers. Okay, last 4 questions. First of all, we check again whether we have one side of the equation 0. Okay, yes. For the first 2 questions, yes, but the next 2, no. So what we're going to do is we're going to expand out and then put the 4 to be on the other side. So 7 times x, 7 times 2, 3x times x, and then 3x times 2. Okay, so we're going to have, when it is in the expanded form, it is 7x plus 14 minus 3x squared minus 6x equals to 4. Okay, I'm going to rearrange this so that I'm going to put one side to be 0. So I'm going to put 3x squared minus x minus 10 equals to 0. Okay, how did I do it? Can you imagine that I add 3x to both sides so that this is brought over to this side? And then this 7x minus 6x is an x, but I brought over to the other side becomes negative x. This one, when it's combined with this 4 here, so it's 4 minus 14, so it's negative 10. Okay, so now there is a 0 on one side of the equation, and we can do now factor law. So what we're going to do is use the cross method to factorize. Okay, so we are having negative 6x plus 5x, so it's negative x, which is this middle term. So I'm going to have 3x plus 5 times x minus 2 equals to 0. So now factor law, either 3x plus 5 equals to 0 or x minus 2 equals to 0. So x is negative 1 and 2/3 or x equals to 2. So these two are the answers. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here. There's nothing in common, and then there are terms which I can simplify. So I'm going to multiply in and then multiply in. Okay, so I have 3x squared minus 15x equals to 2x squared plus 14x. Rearrange the term. 3x squared minus 2x squared minus 15x minus 14x is 0. See, I got one side to be equal to 0 already, so I can use now factor law now. So x squared minus 29x equals to 0. The common factor is x, so I take the x out. So I have x times x minus 29 equals to 0. So now factor law, when the product of these two equals to 0, that means one of them must be equals to 0. So x is equals to 0 or x equals to 29. So this is the answer for question 20. This one is easier. It is already with one side equals to 0. So what we need to do is just factorize the left hand side. The left hand side is the general form of a quadratic expression which is in descending order of x. So I did break the x into x times x squared into x times x, 16 into 2 and 8 with a negative 8 and a positive 2. So I can say x plus 2 times x minus 8 is actually equals to 0. Using now factor law, x minus 2 equals to 0 or x plus 2 equals to 0 or x minus 8 equals to 0. So x is negative 2 or x is equals to 8. So these are the answers. Okay, for the question 17, I choose to arrange this number in this expression in descending order. So I have x squared minus 7x plus 7x minus 8 equals to 0. I multiply negative, and so it becomes x squared plus 7x minus 8 equals to 0. Cross method again, 8 and 1, a plus here and a minus here. So I have x plus 8 multiply with x minus 1 equals to 0. So x plus 8 is a 0 or x minus 1 is a 0. So x is negative 8 or x is equals to 1. So these are the answers. So the answers for all these 4 questions are here. Okay.